on lots of different webinars that we've had, and I just want to thank you for joining again this afternoon for us to give more clarity and information regarding how we will, some of the things and the knowns that we have for e-learning this coming fall, if this is the choice option B that you're choosing for your students and for your family due to COVID. So I will tell you that we have put together as much as we possibly can at this point in our juncture of e-learning, but I know that there were a lot of requests, and I think there were a lot of misconceptions about how New Summit will be offering our e-learning option or remote learning this coming fall. And so I hope that this session will answer many of your questions in terms of operations, expectations, and so forth. In addition to us being able to get into a couple of the courses, to show you kind of what it's going to look like for this next year. Let me give you a caveat that we won't be able to go into every single grade level. So what I'm going to be showing you is just a snapshot of a couple elementary grade levels in addition to one of our middle school, just like math, algebra 1 demo. We would be here most of the day if I showed you every single grade level. So just wanted to touch base with you on that prior to our session beginning. I think without further ado, as we're getting started and having more people come in, but again, if you just came in, I'm Kim McClelland. I'm the Principal and Executive Director of New Summit Charter Academy. Give you a little bit of background on me and e-learning in general. So I've been I used to be an online teacher. I taught kindergarten through 5th grade as a online teacher years ago when my first, actually my second daughter was born. So I was one of the first e-learning teachers in the state of Colorado, believe it or not, 17 years ago. Then I also became I've been an e-learning and online school principal. So I have a lot of information. I also was an authorizer of online schools, one of the largest online schools in the state. And I've done the curriculum side and the for-profit curriculum side. I've been a part of that and helping launch schools throughout the country. So e-learning, blended learning, online learning has been a part of my career for many, many years. So know that you're in good hands, and when choosing how to do these solutions and come up with a solution for our families, you're kind of in a lucky place because of the implementation and the best practices that I know that work for online learning. I also want to tell you, please don't listen to what you're hearing on Facebook, what you're hearing in terms of what other schools are doing. That doesn't pertain to New Summit Charter Academy. New Summit Charter Academy is doing our own thing. We are not doing the exact same thing that the district is doing. So I'm really glad that you're attending with us today so that we can clear up any misconceptions that may be out there in terms of what e-learning will look like for you and your family and your students, okay? So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen with you. You know what, I just want to make sure that I refresh because I know we made a couple little changes, so give me just a minute. And I'm going to refresh to make sure everything is up to date. And I think we're good to go. All right. One of the other things that I want to let you know is that we have a Q&A section. If you're new to one of our webinar sessions, what you do is when you have questions, you go in, and I have Catherine Sneed. Catherine, can you say hello really quick?
Hey, everyone.
So Catherine is our communications coordinator. Most of all the questions and things that you've been seeing is from Catherine. I also have in the room with me right now, we're in the conference room at the school. I have Amanda Roderick with me, and she's my fearless, she's actually sort of my boss in terms of my admin assistant. She tells me to stay on track, and she keeps me, she helps me with my emails, she schedules my appointments, and we have a saying of Amanda that is, of course she can. So it's so great to have her helping me. She helped me through this PowerPoint. We were working on it till late last night together here at the school to make sure that you guys got a comprehensive presentation today, because she's never done e-learning. So I was like, hey, help me through this to make sure that I'm giving you all as much information as I can. We also know that you're probably going to have questions afterwards, because this is going to feel like a fire hose is coming at you, because e-learning is so different than what you have expected in terms of when you enrolled in New Summit Charter Academy. So one of the things that I want to ease your minds on as well is to know that how we have approached, how we're going to approach e-learning for this next fall still has our mission, vision in mind, our core principles, all those things that make New Summit so great. We're hoping that this experience will still continue for you. We're trying to make it as seamless as possible so that you have a really good choice in terms of what your students will be learning, and it can be as closely related to if the students were in person as well. So if you have questions, go ahead and put those into the Q&A box. And then what I'll do is, as we're going through the slides, the panelists may stop me and say, hey, Kim, can you answer this question really quick live? And I'll be more than happy to do that. Okay? All right, so here we go. They may also answer the questions for you as we're going through the lessons or through the presentation. It's not really a lesson. All right. Let me push present. Catherine, can you see my screen? Are we good to go? Okay. So what is going to be on our agenda? So we have a lot to get through in the next, hopefully only about 45 minutes. So whatever questions that don't get answered in this, we can still, never fear, you can still get questions to Catherine. I could even, if I need to, if there's just somebody who's feeling really uneasy, I'm happy to have Amanda schedule some one-on-one or schedule a couple meetings where I can do some additional clarifications for people as you make these choices, because I completely understand, and I want you to know, I understand as your leader that this is a big decision for your family, and we want to make sure that you have all the important information necessary to make that decision before you choose option B. But we're going to be learning about the basics. You're going to be learning about what parent and student supports you will have. I'll be doing a curriculum demo. We'll be talking about what attendance expectations and accountability will look like, what the weekly, kind of give you some examples of some weekly schedules, in addition to some parent resources and some more Q&A time if we didn't have all the answers for you during the presentation. So I'm going to load a quick poll for you, because I'm really curious to see what, and here's the question, is what are you most interested in learning about in this e-learning webinar? Is it curriculum? Are you most interested in the schedule? Are you most interested in expectations, teacher support, social emotional, because you can only pick one, because I kind of want to know what's the most popular here. Social emotional support needs, how do you stay connected? I know that's been a question for many families, is how can I still feel like I'm connected to New Summit? Attendance, student support, what materials are going to be needed. I'm going to give you a hint. You're going to get all of these in today's presentation. So I'll give it just a few more minutes while I get a drink of water. Not a minute, sorry, I'll give you one more minute. All right, it looks like I'll be ending the polling here in about 30 seconds. I can see these. I can bring them up later too. But if there's any big ones that you think I need to answer. All right, it looks like curriculum is the popular choice today, friends. And so I will be sure that I spend as much time as possible in the curriculum side so that you guys can get as much as you possibly can during that time. Okay. All right, I'm going to end polling so you can see, as you saw, 40%, then the schedule, then we kind of go to teacher support, social emotional needs. Looks like you guys aren't too concerned about the materials, so that's good, but we're still going to cover that for you. So, all right, I'm going to share the results with all of you so you can see them as well. All right, moving on, friends. So let me just go over sort of what is option B. This is just a review of, because I think there's been some confusion as well in terms of the different nomenclature too. So when you read information on CDE's website, they refer to the remote learning versus e-learning. And we've tried to be consistent in saying e-learning for us. So that's why I kind of have a / remote learning, because they mean the same thing. But the definition really is that remote learning is education that occurs away from a school building in response to emergency situations such as COVID-19 or a natural disaster. Remote learning seeks to offer continuous educational opportunities that may or may not build upon previously taught content. Remote learning is both a temporary and long-term option. So we know that it'll be temporary for some of you, maybe only one semester, but it could be a long-term option because we don't know what we don't know in terms of shutdowns and so forth. So remote learning may include digital resources that you'll see as we get through some of the curriculum content, and or hard copy resources that you'll see how you can have some hard copy resources that you will be able to print and you'll be able to have to do offline. It may also include synchronous, which is like what you're doing right now. This is called synchronous learning, synchronous time, or asynchronous instruction that is more of a self-paced independent work. So you're going to see all of these pieces as a part of your remote learning experience. One thing I'd like to point out is that our option B is not going to exactly pick up where we were in the spring. So where you remember us being in the spring, it's not like you're going to log into Schoology and all of a sudden you're going to see some of the same lessons and so forth. So this is going to be a little bit different, and there's a reason behind why we had to do that. This is an extension of, so it won't be an extension of the spring, but it is more of a comprehensive, it'll be much more comprehensive than what you experienced in the spring, where in the spring we were working on just participation, where now we're really kind of the state saying, you have to have attendance, we have to have grades, we have to really start, since we've had time to plan this, the content needs to be more comprehensive. Which is another reason why the curriculum that I chose and our teams chose was that this is a state-approved curriculum that has been provided and encouraged by the state, that they even put more money into for us to offset those costs in our world as well, since we knew that there were budget cuts. Option B is not going to be for in-person learning. So the things that you're learning right now and things that you're going to see, our in-person students will not be doing the same exact lessons in terms of, they won't be utilizing this content. You guys are pretty lucky that you get to use, and I will tell you, I have a feeling we're creating a monster, because I've showed this to a few teachers and they're like, oh my gosh, how can I use this in my classroom? It's pretty incredible. So we're going to be looking at that as well, but the e-learning students will have this really great comprehensive curriculum that will help to just kind of navigate yourselves through the lessons, and I'll show you that here soon. Some of the lessons require printing for hard copies, especially with lesson extensions that the regular ed classroom teacher may be importing, so that it's still very similar to what the in-person students are learning still. And I think that's about it on that slide. So we're going to move on. The next thing that I want to cover, because there'll be lots of discussion around what is an LMS. An LMS stands for a learning management system. This is the system. So Schoology this last spring was the LMS was the learning management system that we used this last spring and that District 20 uses. We were able to grab that, use it quickly this last spring, and we've gotten lots of feedback from parents and teachers and so forth that wasn't the most popular platform. So we, even our in-person learning kids are going to be using our Google Suite, Google Classroom approach. So it'll be different than what our e-learning students will be doing, which is called Agilix. Agilix is through Buzz. It's called, it'll be Buzz, but Agilix is the main company that utilizes this learning management system. I want to point out that CDLS, Colorado Digital Learning Solutions, is a type of broker. I was explaining this to Amanda and she goes, oh, that's like a broker. And I said, yes. So we are purchasing the curriculum content, elementary and middle school curriculum content from Colorado Digital Learning Solutions, who is the statewide type broker for the online content. They have provided for years support to local rural school districts, even large school districts. District 38, my own daughter uses the similar curriculum that our middle school students will be doing. She's used that in District 38. District 20 has used some of these courses. So this is used in multiple schools, multiple school districts because of the ease and professional development that they provide for staff and teachers, in addition to the course content. So Colorado Digital Learning Solutions also provides professional development, provides courses, and provides resources to districts and schools throughout the whole state. There are different options. As you look, some of you looked online and you saw option 1, option 2, option 3. That is for schools and districts, not for you as parents. I've chosen how we're going to utilize our learning model, and so we'll be using our own regular ed classroom teachers in addition to a learning coach, and I'll talk about that here in a moment. Our in-person students will also be using Google Classroom for their access, but some of your students in e-learning, in order to supplant some of the content that is already provided in the e-learning platform through Buzz, they'll also be importing some lessons through there so that your kids don't miss out on the content that's being taught in the classrooms. We will not be using Schoology, so again, I already explained that, but I'm really excited to show you what this platform looks like and the ease of it for students to be able to be a little bit more independent as well. Training in all of these different systems will be available prior and during school for the students and for the families. And there'll be an onboarding process that we'll be bringing you through. We won't just like put you online like we did this spring and say, hey, have at it, enjoy. We'll be actually onboarding that for the first couple of weeks of school so that you can get used to that, in addition to our in-class students. Our in-class students will be getting some exposure to our Google Classroom so that if they need to go home immediately, they can, for any reason that there may be a shutdown. Student support. So this is where, who will be my child's teacher and who do I email if I have a problem? Your kids, remember, are going to, like I said in the town hall meeting, they will be enrolled in a regular classroom, and that classroom teacher, let's say it's Mrs. Edmondson. She's a 5th grade teacher. She's going to have a full class list that may have in-person kids, and it's going to have e-learning kids. So that teacher is going to be your teacher no matter what class or what option you choose. You will also have a learning coach. So I have learning coach plus a classroom teacher, and that's the NSCA learning coach. That is not a outsourced learning coach, outsourced teacher, or whatever. This is a it's a staff member of, or a couple staff members that are already currently employed with New Summit, plus the classroom teacher will equal a co-teacher support. So they're going to co-teach together, similar to what our TAs do with our classroom teachers. They co-teach together, they support each other, and they work as a team. So your learning coach will set clear expectations for all of their students. So the learning coach will likely we'll have one that will likely be a K2 learning coach and then a 3 through 5 learning coach. So they'll be supporting all those grades. But again, they won't be having to create content. They won't be having to do all that because the curriculum will be done for them. They're going to be your first point of contact by email, phone, or virtually, like what we're doing here. They will work with the classroom teacher to ensure that the pacing of the curriculum is appropriate and coincides as closely with the in-person students that are going to be in that, let's say, 5th grade classroom, that they're going to be utilizing that pace and looking at that and really working weekly. So they'll have to meet with those grade level teachers weekly on that as well. They're going to be able to help, pull the differentiated support for the students from the teachers, from the support staff. Maybe that's your gifted and talented. I know there was a gifted and talented question here. So the learning coach would work with the gifted and talented teacher to ensure that the enhancements are appropriate and so forth, in addition to your students with IEPs. Mrs. Helling and the middle school resource teacher will be really kind of integrated into that as well. So they'll meet weekly with the students and parents by grade level. And then you have a classroom teacher. So the student support not only has a learning coach, but they'll have their classroom teacher. And then they'll also have a remote learning site-based coordinator who manages all the back-end coursework, learning management system, make sure that the system's running smoothly, that there's the connections that it needs to have, and so forth. So our e-learning kids are going to have a lot of great support with our new Summit staff, and we're excited about that. All right, so I'm going to get into some of the more about now the curriculum. So your students will, going back. So we're going to be assessing where the students are to load the correct courses for the student based on feedback from the learning coach and the in-person classroom teacher. So what's going to happen is at the beginning of the school year, they still will be required to take the NWEA MAP test that every student in our school needs to take, because we need to figure out that baseline, and we need to figure out where our students are from this COVID slide that has occurred. This will also help inform how we're going to differentiate the instruction. So those kids in the in-person learning where we do skill level grouping and we do all that, we're going to be able to do that in our e-learning platform, because we're going to be able to load the lessons and ensure that proper supports are in place for those e-learning students as well. But we need to have that baseline information so that we can figure out which gaps we need to close. We also, there's some great, each online course does also have a pretest. So when you'll see this when we get into the lesson demo, when there is a particular online module, they'll have a pretest at the beginning of, especially in elementary. I can't remember if this is in middle school or not, but the pretest is there so that it can inform the learning coach and classroom teacher on what differentiation needs to be required for the class. So all of our classes do pre-tests at the beginning of units or the beginning of different lessons. And so then our teachers, that's what our teachers use to then skill level group the kids. Well, they'll get to have that in the e-learning platform, but the platform then does that for them so that they can be grouped in different groups with each other. They wouldn't necessarily know which group they're in because the curriculum then does that for them, which is really nice. The curriculum is aligned, and I'll be showing you a slide here in a moment because we've had some confusion around Colorado academic standards and Common Core. And so I'm going to be showing you a slide and processing that through with you, and even giving you examples of what we're doing in even our own school model. So the curriculum is aligned to Colorado academic standards, similar to our own curriculum that we use in the in-person learning. So our CKLA curriculum, our Dimensions Math, even our core knowledge curriculum has to meet or exceed the state standards in terms of Colorado academic standards. And I'll show you how Common Core is built into that and what the state used in terms of that, those standards. The online curriculum is considered like a textbook. So when your kids are using workbooks or they're using textbooks in their classroom, this is just the curriculum that you see is just an interactive textbook. It has examples, it has beginning lesson units, it has beginning prompts, it has what you need to know, what you're going to learn. It has activities. So, but it's built into an interactive way that is online versus being in a book. So you can kind of relate it to the curriculum that's being done in the classroom is like through a textbook, where we're doing it through an interactive textbook online. The courses can be loaded similar to what's in-person learning, so they'll experience and have access to load. Our teachers will be able to load even some of the core knowledge content that's being taught in the in-person class. So the kids won't miss out on that. If they're learning about Egyptians or they're learning about a particular unit that isn't in the online class, our teachers will be able to load their Google Classroom content into our Buzz platform in order to make sure that the kids are getting the same experience in the e-learning environment. The course does have content that allows for various instruction tools. So you'll see lots of different instruction tools with videos, interactive slides, and I'll show you that here in a moment. And then you will see just so many cool things that it has in there that a regular typed textbook doesn't necessarily have, that can be, but the teachers are the ones who bring that to life in the classroom. All right, so here's the slide that Catherine, luckily, she's like, Kim, I've been trying to explain this to lots of different people. And so she put together sort of a slide that kind of explained what it is that we use in our school in addition to what our online content is. So when you look at this slide, is the curriculum Common Core? So there's been a lot of questions on yes or no, Kim. I need a yes or no answer. I was talking with even a board member last night, and I said, I can't tell you yes and I can't tell you no, because if I tell you yes, I'm lying because it's not all of it. But if I tell you no, I'm also lying because of how the state has adopted their own standards. There is a link, if you're interested, on the Colorado Department of Education's website that explains this in detail and how they came to the Colorado academic standards, and they're called the CAS 2020 standards. So we are bound, okay, through our Unified Improvement Plan and our accreditation with the district to, we have to either meet or exceed the Colorado academic standards. So when we applied for an application as a charter to the district, we had to show that our education program, curriculum, the way we teach, whatever it might be, either meets or exceeds the state standards. So as you see over here on the left-hand side, traditional public schools, their instruction, they may be using Common Core, but the umbrella really is the Colorado academic standards. That includes some Common Core standards in math and only language arts. Now, so you guys may be like, hold on a second, I never knew this. Well, I'm hoping that this gives you more information, because our Dimensions Math, Singapore Math, our CKLA curriculum, even our core knowledge curriculum, we have to fill the gap with the Colorado academic standards. But then here's the difference, folks. How we instruct using that standard, we can use other methods. So that's the squirvy line to show that instruction using other methods is what public charter schools have, the ability and the autonomy in how we teach those standards. So if you see the word Common Core, you may see it in middle school, or you might see it because we're utilizing a curriculum content that's been developed for any state to be able to use these lessons, because so for instance, our elementary curriculum that we are purchasing from CDLS is actually Florida Virtual School. They're a big company that's been around even since I was an online teacher, and they've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars, similar to other curriculum companies, to develop the online curriculum that they have. But they have it built into a way that it still meets any national standards or state standards for the use of that. Same with the Edmentum for middle school and high school. Again, let me reinforce. We have to, this curriculum meets and exceeds Colorado academic standards, so it's aligned to that. our teacher and our learning coach can look at the content and they can say, you know what, this is how we're teaching it, the way we instruct, and the other methods that we use that is more similar to what New Summit is and how we work. I feel like we need to just have them do this lesson, and this lesson, and then I'm going to implement this part of the unit that we are doing in class. So they'll have the ability to do that. So that's the answer in a nutshell, as best I could give you. If you need some more explanation on that, I'm happy to do that. But I don't want us to get stuck on the Colorado Academic Standards or Common Core, because the content that your kids are going to be learning, it is, again, everything your kids have been doing is also Colorado Academic Standards aligned, because we have to do that for even state testing for our own accreditation, as that we get accredited by the district. So how schools perform in those school performance frameworks, we have to still take that test, but again, how we instruct it is different. There's other schools use instruction using Common Core approaches. We're using more of a different method, and we can do that in the e-learning platform as well. So I just wanted to give that before, because I think there were some misconceptions on that earlier, and I wanted to be sure everybody kind of understood that. So I'm going to go ahead and go into now. This is what your main screen is going to look like when you get to Buzz for Elementary, and you're going to log in. This is just what my platform looks like right now. What I'm going to do is go ahead and go into an elementary mathematics grade 3 demo. If somebody is interested in looking at a language arts, I'll even do a 5th grade science. And then there's a middle school science that I'll go into, or an English one. So we'll be able to go into one of these lessons here in just a moment. So I'm going to start with elementary. So those middle school families, you could tune out for just a few minutes, or if you're really interested and you want to show all your friends how great this is, and how great New Summit's going to be doing it, they can enroll in our school for that. But this is just a similar tile structure that your kids are going to see when they log in as well. And so they also have different areas here that you'll see that you can say, okay, I'm going to go directly to an activity, or I'm going to go to my grade book. I'm going to go to different people, my editor. So this is more for a teacher, okay? But you'll be able to get to your activities and grade book and things like that in here. You'll also be able to see a progress bar that will show you how far your kids progressed through the particular lesson. So let me go ahead and get in here. So if you notice here, one thing I want to point out is, I'm going to collapse this, is every single one of this next screen is kind of more, your kids will start to get used to this, but as a parent, you could kind of log in. If you have a younger student, you can get them to that point, and then you'll see what I mean here in just a moment. But every one of them will always have a welcome, a getting started, and sort of a learning piece that you'll be doing at the beginning of the year. And it always stays there in your lessons so that you can go back to it if there's something that you need to learn for that. This shows every single 15 modules for third grade. So this would be like each module is like a unit, and then each unit or module also has lessons that are embedded into that. So you will not have access to every single one of these when you get in there. So I want to preface that, because remember, we're only going to load what the in-person kids are starting to learn. And then there may be some additional content that will be in there that your teachers will load for you so that it's very similar to in-person learning. So let's say you just had module 1. You may log in and you'll see welcome, getting started in module 1 in your third grade math curriculum. You can either click here on this little play button, or you can uncollapse the folder, and it shows and already has loaded the pretest. It'll have underwater, it'll have different lessons. So this is like unit 1, lesson 1, unit 1, lesson 1 here, lesson 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And then it has the assessment at the end, okay? So there may also be in the middle of this a Google Classroom content that your classroom teacher has embedded because they want that student to either differentiate, it's for differentiation, or they're going to want to enhance a lesson for your particular student as well. Okay, so there may be a couple things that the classroom teacher has put in here and the learning coach has as well, in addition to what you see here. So let me go into the underwater fish spotter. Okay, so what we're on now is there's so many resources. So you can already tell this looks very different than what you experienced in the fall, in the spring. So there's different tools up here. I want to call attention to this. I'm not going to go through all of these only because I want to get through lots of lessons. We have some more slides to get through. So I'm going to kind of go through these a little bit quicker, but I'm going to show you the meat of the lessons, that every single subject will look similar and each of the grade levels will be similar, but the videos will change, the content in terms of how much a student reads will change to be more age appropriate and so forth. But one of the things I want to point out here too is there's this great speech tool, and if I click on here it'll go away. If I click it again it'll come back, and I'm just gonna kind of start with it, and I'm going to show you this real quick because it will read to those kids who may not be at grade level in math with their reading. And so you want it to be more you know, student friendly and students to be able to have more independence in that. And so this will be able to do that for them. So I'll show you this.
Elementary Mathematics 3, Addition Facts, 1.01 Underwater Fish Spotter. Underwater Fish Spotter. Luana loves to learn about animals that live in the water. When she grows up, she wants to be a marine biologist. This means she will need math skills.
So one of the things that I love about this part of it too, it's very robotic, I get that, but when we talk about our literacy first concept, this curriculum still even meets our literacy first concept because it's reading to the kids. And we talk about the emphasis of reading to kids, and it even follows. So kids are learning to even read and see sight words and working through that, even as they're doing math, which is really powerful. Each of the lessons you'll see at the top here will show a progress screen, and it'll navigate to the different pages. So we know that this lesson has 7 different components. Doesn't mean that you have to always do every single bit of every single piece of it, but kids can go through this fairly quickly or as slow as the pace time spent on each objective varies by child. This is where you will see that embedded into the lesson. I love how even in our classrooms, when I go into a classroom, I ask the teachers, you need to post your lesson objectives, or your lesson objectives need to be in your lesson plans, so that we know that students can identify what they will learn in a lesson. So this is similar to what they're going to see in a classroom. We ask students, what will I learn in this lesson? You will be able to add 3-digit numbers and 2-digit numbers, add 2 and 3-digit numbers in the sum of 1,000 or more. So this is just giving them that overview. Fish Edition, this is your write about it. So many teachers have interactive notebooks in their classes. They too have it here in the online world, which is wonderful. So we tell the kids that a lot of times when the kids come in and they do the transition in class, the teacher will have a prompt up at the board, or they'll have a beginning lesson that's something that they'd learned before. And that's where they use their interactive notebook to write in. They can then get the feedback and the answer to that, so they can get it immediately. And then here's a little lesson. Here's a video that will explain again the beginning part of the lesson.
What can you do with an open number line? Why, anything you want, as long as it's addition or subtraction. An open number line is a model that lets you work with any numbers you want. It starts as a blank line.
Or you can go slower.
In whatever numbers you need.
Again, differentiating the needs of the kids.
We have 30 carrot seeds to be planted in the garden. We found 6 more seeds in the pantry. Count on to find how many seeds I have in all. To get started, we need a number line. Maybe not so big. We want it to fit on the page. We already know that the number we're counting on from is 30. So let's create a number line that starts on 30. That's a fine looking number line. We also know that we're going to count on 6. So to be safe, we'll create a number line that goes to 40.
So you can see they're going to go through this, and the kid can even say, okay, I get the point, so I'm going to go a little bit.
Boy,
These are kids who
where
figure
else
that
do you
out.
get to use numbers, colors, hops, and carrots to solve a problem? Oh, you gotta love math.
So most of the videos, the instructional videos that you'll see in this lesson, or in any of the lessons that you see, will be usually no more than 2 to 3 minutes long, because we know kids lose their attention at that point. But it does allow them to go back and review it again, go forward, and so forth. They'll also then, once they get sort of this example, they now get to explore some new examples like what you would see in a textbook. Again, this goes through that interactive textbook, and they get to solving the equations we add. So they start here, and then they go, okay, now we're going to break it apart, and then we're going to do some hops to show how that happened. Each of the videos also has a text version, so that if something's not working in your video, there's always a text version that you can utilize so that you can read that, or the student can read that as well, just like in a textbook. Then I would move on to the next part of the lesson. And we're going into example 1. Very similar to any textbook and workbook that the kids see, is they see some examples. So we're solving another problem, and it's showing another hop. So we even do this in Singapore Math. We show the kids the number line, and so this would be that pictorial approach that we do even in Singapore Math. Here's another example. So we're going to break it apart, and they get to see that. And then here's our hopping. And then they're going to say, go ahead and try it. And this is where I was saying, where we have offline content as well. So we may have only been in this lesson 10 minutes. The child can take a break, go get a snack. They could be, while this is printing, they come back to it, and then they grab this sheet and they do an activity. Hey, Mom, I got this done. Can we check the work? They can even check their own work, which is what I love about this curriculum. So they can even go back. So if Mom's busy, or Dad's busy, or brother or sister is busy, they can go back and actually look at what the answer was for that as well. Then I'm going to go on to the next part of this. So now we're going to do some more examples. I want to point out another item here that's really important. Your kids in class with Singapore Math, they have manipulatives. This video is great because it actually shows the base 10 manipulatives in terms of place value, and place value is just as important in Singapore Math as it is in this lesson assessment as well, or not lesson assessment, this lesson that we're doing as well. So I'll just show you a quick view of this.
Okay. Adding 2-digit numbers can be challenging. Rods and units can be used to help model the tens and ones in numbers we are trying to add. Let's start off by adding the numbers 23 and 45 vertically to warm up. First, add the numbers in the ones column.
Okay, so you can see how they're actually using the tools of manipulatives to show that. So then you could build something at home, or draw these out so that the student can do that as well. Here's some more examples. I'm going to kind of blaze through this because I want to get to middle school as well. Here's some more examples. Notice there's just so many examples that the kids can do. Then they can also come back in here, and then they're going to try it. So then they have different ways that they can say, okay, this one's 481. That's correct. It even tells you if it's wrong. So I'm going to go to the next one. I'm going to say 800. Whoops, that one's wrong. So we're going to do it again. Let's see if it gives me, nope, that's not quite right, but try again. And so it gives them the opportunity, but it gives them immediate feedback. The science ones, there's even a science lesson that they can actually turn, they can do a prediction, they can turn a card. So there's some interactive ways that the kids can utilize looking through the lessons, and it's very interactive in different ways that the kids can manipulate different parts of the lesson. As a closure in this piece of it, they say, okay, lesson summary. Here's all the things that we did. We did some offline, we did some online, we did some interactive pieces, we watched some videos. So you can see all the different tools that will help navigate the student through the lesson without having to be in a video watching a teacher live with the instruction. Now, if your student has any difficulty with this lesson and they were really struggling with it, you know, this is where then you would contact the learning coach. The learning coach can get on to a synchronous session and help then pull apart the lesson in another way too through our Google Classroom site as well. And then they do this last part of it. They can fill in the answers for this particular review. They can type it, sorry, we don't use letters, but then they can type it in, submit the answer, gives them feedback, and then we can move on to, it'll tell them to then go in to the quiz that they then go into at a later time that then would be counted as a grade, okay? So that just gives you all of the lessons, again, are going to be similar to, and let me get back out of here, go back to my home so that I can get back. And then the science demo, I'm just going to show you this, a couple things in this one really fast so that you can see a couple of the other interactive tools that it has. So this one, there's a really fun video that they go into, and they have this scientist that talks about it. They can, and here's the loading of that scientist. So they're preparing what is a solid, what is not a solid. So they can look at the answers here, observe each picture and determine whether it is an example of a solid or not. Okay. So you can see all the different tools. They can separate the mixtures so they can see the different pieces here. And again, if they have a problem reading it, they wouldn't need to click here to check your work. So in this one, we're going to say they have some more answers that they can get feedback on. And there's some more videos. There's little cards that they can switch back and forth. And there's some really neat pieces with this. So moving on, I can do more lessons as needed, but I think you guys kind of get the idea of what some of this will look like in terms of just sort of the layout of the lessons and the interactive tools that it has. Okay, so I'm going to go into a middle school. Let me get back over here. Go to a middle school science. Notice it has semester 1 here. Sending your messages to your instructor, grading. It goes through different ways so that the student knows how to do that, and it'll always have those videos for them. Let's go into genetic mutations. Oh, sorry, that's the quiz. Didn't mean to do that. Oh, sorry, don't mean to do that either. So actually, let me just go here. I don't know why I just did that. Let's make sure, nope, it's not wanting me to do that in my demo. Sorry about that, guys. So I'm gonna go over here. Thank you for your patience. Once again, I have an error. Not really sure why. Give me just a minute.
Hey, Kim, will parents have full access to their child's e-learning account?
They should, yes. There'll be a, let me double check on that answer. So Amanda, could you have me ask Dan that and how their parent accounts look? I believe it's very similar to what you experience in what Schoology had, where you had access to a parent account that showed you what the students would be learning. Why am I having an error? This would be typical. So give me just a moment. Let me just log in and see if I can do it from here. See if it'll do it better for us, you guys. Thank you for your patience.
Can you change your student up at the top?
Hmm?
Can you change your student?
Yeah, now I think I'm in, no, that's English 10. I don't want to be in there. We're not doing a 10th grade class right now. Okay. Okay, here we go. Let's see if this one will work. So here's a linear equalities. And let's work. Ready? No. Of course it doesn't want to work. Okay. We're going to go back out. Sorry, guys. This was working just a little bit ago for my demo. So let's try this one. And loading, yeah. Oh, it's saying you are logged out of Edmonton. Let me try next activity. I don't know why we're getting an error. So I apologize for my middle school families. Totally not fair for you. Let me just double check to see if I need to view as, if maybe that's why it's doing it for me. So give me just a second. Try it one more time, friends. Thank you for your patience again. Kind of what you guys probably feel when you were doing Schoology last year. It was like, it's not working. Okay, work. Ooh, wait. I think we're working. Loading. Oh my gosh, I think it's working. Please, learner progress. Next activity. Oh wait, here. Okay, I think we're in. Good. Okay, so I'm just going to show you this beginning view. You can see that the videos are definitely more appropriate for middle school, so they're more grade appropriate at this point. So I'm just going to go into, here we go. So the students can also, so there's some good resources over here. It will, the guided notes in slavery. So there's some guided notes section. So same like what you see in terms of the students can print this out, which is phenomenal because then they can go in and as they're going through, instead of having to take notes on their own, they're learning how to take notes and they're able to then fill these in and save this and then give it to the teacher. So they're able to then fill in the guided part of that to follow along, which is a great, great teaching tool. I wish we could have this in everything. And this is why I said, there's going to be teachers that are going to be like, how do I get that? I want to be able to use that too. So some other resources that they have, they can navigate to different areas over here. We can also turn on the slide narration.
Timeline. Slavery in Colonial America. Click each event on the timeline to learn more about slavery during the colonial period. Use the controls on the left to expand and contract the timeline or to return to the beginning.
So you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so they can,
After Christopher Columbus arrived in the New World from Spain, the Spanish established a colony in what is now the Dominican Republic. The colony was called Santo Domingo, and the Spanish soon began kidnapping African people and enslaving them to work in mines and on plantations.
okay, so I'm gonna pause that.
1619.
Wait, why is it still
The
doing
first
it? There we go. So I was clicking to speak, so it'll also speak to me. And for those students who are not able to read that as well, so we can go to the different areas here, and it'll either the student can read it or the slide narration can be on and it will go through. Click each event on the timeline to learn more about. Okay, now we're going to do the next introduction. One. Slavery in the colonies of North America has a long history. Shortly after Christopher. So I'm going to keep going through it. The spread of slavery. The Middle Passage. To maximize so it's like a textbook profit. Again. Slavery in North America. And if you notice, remember that those interactive notes, so they can go in and fill those in to be more of an interactive as they're learning, and they can be filling it in so that they're more engaged in the process as they're learning this particular information. Rice in the Carolinas. They also have like cue words or vocab words that we have even in most of our history lessons as well. So then they go through and they're learning all about this particular unit. Then some more opposition to slave. So then we're going to save and so this is just more of the learning piece of it. Type your response in the box. So name 3 ways in which slaves and white colonists showed. So then the student can say, this is what I think. And then they can submit the answer. That would then go to, this would go to the learning coach that then could be graded. Okay, next piece. Contributions of Africans to colonial America. I wish I could show you guys a math one too, because it's even more interactive, but cultural I don't know why it wasn't letting me into that one. So I'm going to save and exit. Oh no, I just went out of the whole thing. Of course I did. All right, so let me see if I can get into another demo now, see if it'll work now on a different one. Okay. So let's go into a middle school math. Let's see if this one will work now, guys. Let's go to Unit 2, additional numbers. Here we go. Looks like it's working this time, everybody. Okay. All right, well, I will do some more because I don't know why this is not working for my middle school as much. And I want to get into some other, and so I'll do a video tutorial of some of the middle school, more of the middle school curriculum so that you can get into see how Edmentum does some of the interactiveness, but there's still the same tools that you see. There'll be videos, there'll be items that they can utilize and submit things directly into there. They have different tools with the notes and so forth. They still have pre-tests, they have quizzes, and they have tests that will guide them through each of the lessons. So I will try to do some middle school and elementary demo videos so that you guys can see those and click on them so that you can see them a little bit more. I can also give you guys some demo accounts that CDLS has so that we can move forward on that as well. So let me go through a couple of these other slides in terms of what else you can expect. So attendance and participation. We are required by the state to ensure that all students are meeting the attendance requirements still set by the state, regardless of in-person or e-learning. So we have to do a minimum of 160 days. Middle school students need to complete 1080 hours and 990 hours. So 1,080 hours for middle school and 990. Like in-person learning, not all courses necessarily receive the same time equivalency. So for instance, homeroom, orientation specials, those courses may have a little bit of a different time equivalency so than our teacher pupil instruction for regular core courses. So contact minutes per day. Therefore, the e-learning program uses an appropriate time equivalency for all courses. So we'll be looking at a time equivalency on how long it would, the average or the typical student, or how long they think that it would take. And we will be counting that as that time. So even if, let's say, a lesson took your child 10 minutes to get through, we know that at some point in their life, it would have taken them an hour, even if they say that the average time would take an hour. We're not going to force them to stay in that math course for an hour. So again, that pace is going to be very arbitrary in terms of timing for that. So this is not like last year though, where we're only logging participation. We will be required to follow attendance requirements, and our learning coach will explain that to you. And our board's going to be adopting an attendance policy that will reflect the e-learning and remote learning options for attendance time. So there'll be more coming with that. Your weekly commitment. We wanted to show you a slide on what is the sort of your weekly commitment and what that's going to look like. So the amount of time is about 3 to 5 hours per course and 1 hour for specials. So again, weekly, not daily. So 3 to 5 hours per core course and 1 hour per specials course or your elective. Now middle school, your elective courses may take a little bit longer because that's going to be broken up a little bit differently than elementary. You will be, students will need to attend some kind of office hour, or parents, you'll be collaborating with other classmates through in that grade level with the learning coach, reading, playing games, listening to audio clips, watching videos. So all of these things are a part of your weekly commitment. The number of assignments are usually about 2 to 4 per course per week and 1 per specials course. So we're going to be looking at what that looks like and how that's going to be managed. The learning coach will be giving that too, but these are just averages so that you can kind of get an idea. There's lots of hands-on written worksheets, coloring, matching worksheets, projects, performing experiences, experiments. I know in one of the science lessons it was doing soluble versus insoluble, and they were making lemonade and they were pouring sugar and salts and things. So a lot of the material and science things that you need would be a typical kitchen items that you would have. Let me just double check my notes, make sure I got everything here. The learning coach will communicate weekly what the expectations are for each grade level and what will be graded for clarity's sake each week. So you'll have that as a part of your checklist. And again, we're trying to come up with the equivalencies to work with that attendance policy. And then you saw in the lesson demo what the computer-based program and hands-on types of things will be there. This is just showing weekly schedules. So the weekly schedule for elementary, this is not a have-to. This is just an example that what it shows is that, well, this particular student is really, language arts, they like to spend a lot of time on Mondays and Wednesdays with that. And then, but math is one that we know that this particular student may need every day. They're going to need to touch on math every day because it might take them a little bit longer. Science and social studies can be alternated. And then Spanish, that is just an example. I know elementary, we don't offer Spanish right now, but that would be the place of say music or art or one of the other specials that is in there. We're still determining whether or not we will, we have access to the Spanish courses for elementary, but we wouldn't have a Spanish teacher to help support that. So I do want to give that as a caveat that if somebody is really passionate about, I really want to have my kid in Spanish, Just know that we don't have necessarily a teacher at this time to help support that, but the learning coach would do their best in supporting that. So we may be able to still offer Spanish since it is available to us through our courses. So this is just an example. You may flip-flop that. Your learning coach will be trained on how to create your schedule, and you'll be required to kind of create that schedule in your first couple of weeks and see what is going to work best for you as a parent and as for your student. This is a middle school. Middle school is going to look a little bit different because on how we're approaching our block schedule. So you'll notice that there isn't any language arts in this. That's because this particular student for first and third quarter will be in their block of history, math, and Spanish only, because then the next block, and we'll explain that later as we get into the year, as we get into the beginning of the school year. The second and fourth quarter, they would be focusing then on language arts, science, and maybe a life skills class or a leadership class. So our e-learning students are going to be scheduled just like our elementary students will be scheduled into a regular schedule, so that when they come back to in-person learning, they're not, they will have not been confused in terms of the schedule and what that looks like, so that still that transition is very key. So this is just showing you an example of this particular student's block that has history, math, and Spanish as their main core classes, then with their elective and some IXL supplement time, that if they're not doing reading or let's say language arts, they would be doing more language arts IXL supplementation so that they can still be closing the gap on skills that they need. Some additional engagements that you'll be responsible for would be virtual office hours with the learning coach, school-wide assessments, IXL progress for both kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. We did do a big school-wide purchase of this progress monitoring tool that really helps identify them when they take the NWEA MAP test. It will load certain skills that they need to close the gap on, and IXL has a really great process that brings kids through that. Some of you may already have experience in that this summer because we had a math, what do you call it, Amanda? It's a math challenge for IXL third through seventh grade this last summer. So your kids are familiar with that. Support service teachers and connections and coursework. So your support service teachers will also have some additional time that you'll need to connect with them. In addition to our counselor will be some more engagements that you can have. Your parent expectations is to monitor your students daily. You already do that in the in-person learning environment. When you pick them up from school, you ask them how school went that day. But in the K-5 environment, it will require a responsible adult to be present at all times to help with the navigation, but kids will still, they'll start to learn how to become more independent in that process. Middle school, we know that middle school kids do tend to stay home and they're okay, but that's kind of up to your family. We would ask that you have a responsible adult that's home with them so that they can answer questions and they can connect, but they're going to be primarily connecting themselves with the learning coach, not so much the parent. But in K-5, as they get older, maybe even our 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, they'll know how to connect with their learning coach, but and maybe the parent won't need to do that, but you're just going to be monitoring that student daily in terms of their progress and how they're doing in school. We ask that you ensure content mastery. So you're going to be working through that, and you're going to see is the content being, are the kids mastering that content well enough that they can move on, and you'll be working, the learning coach will know this as well, and the regular classroom teacher. Communicate with your learning coach in a timely manner. Help with course navigation when needed, and then maintain weekly progress and making sure that that weekly progress is being met, just like the grade expectations are being met in an in-classroom environment. And then you must attend for at least one semester, and on a case-by-case basis, if we need to switch, we can do that, but it's going to be on a very big case-by-case basis. This is just some of the materials that you need. You'll notice that it's very similar to a classroom in-person environment. So they should already have their scissors, crayons, glue, tape, different interactive notebooks, 3-ring binders, and so forth. So disk space on your computer as well for external devices that can back up your files, and so forth. So the learning coach will really help process that through with you, but for the most part, these are the main pieces that you would need. And for any science experiments, it would be local class kitchen household items. Some technical requirements for elementary, I'm just going to link into here so that you guys can see. One of the things that we know that the only mobile device that we can use, so Google Chromebook, there is some Flash and Java that does not work well with Google Chromebook and an iPad. So if you do not have an iPad, if you don't have a regular computer that is a laptop computer or a desktop computer, it would be important that you either find one or we can loan you one similar to what we did this last spring in a Google Chromebook. But just know that those devices are limited on some of the browsers, and some of the lessons may not work as great. But as it says here, they've been really working to try to get rid of the reason for Java and Flash, because that is going away, even as of, I believe, December 31st. So they've been doing a lot with those lessons to try to make sure that JavaScript and Flash is not needed for that. But iPads will be pretty difficult for the kiddos to use that. So you'll need an actual computer. Same with Edmentum. There's a form here that you can link into so you can see the system requirements for that and some of the plugins that you'll need there. Pop-up blockers, how to turn that off. But these are the latest browsers that will work with Edmentum for our middle school students. Again, responsible adult, please, that's there for supervision, and then must stay in the program for at least 1 semester. We'll have some parent resources for you so that you can have access to some great things. So we just kind of started this for you, and your learning coach will be providing more supports as school begins. But there'll also be a lot of this onboarding at the beginning of the year will look very different. You'll be doing a lot of training with your student in the beginning, watching videos on how to navigate the platform, in addition to working and meeting with your learning coach to decide which lessons we're going to load, how we're going to load them, and then meeting with the classroom teacher as well, because they are in that class with the classroom teacher. And then now we have time for questions. There was a question I had here on, can parents work on assignments over the weekend to accommodate work schedules? Absolutely, because these would be weekly requirements. So the teacher, the learning coach, you would just work that schedule out with the learning coach, and they would say, these assignments and this weekly progress would be due by, Sunday by midnight, something like that, because then the new checklist would begin and the new lessons would load and be loaded for the next week's priorities. So similar to an in-person learning experience, teachers will have their weekly lesson plans. They may not always get to all of those lesson plans because there's differentiation and things happen. And so we understand that. So they'll be having to work with the weekly with the classroom teacher to be sure that everybody's on the same sync as much as possible as well. Again, it's not going to be perfect. So I hope everybody understands this. Trying to make it as similar as possible is going to be a chess piece, but we're going to do everything we can to be sure that your students do still have that time to be in sync with the rest of the class. Let's see, this gives a good overview for e-learning as an option to help weigh our decisions. Is there a good idea of what in-person learning will look like for the fall semester? Would that be, let's see, Adam, are you specifically meaning for middle school or for in-person or for elementary? Well, they're in-person elementary. Okay, so elementary will be similar to what they experienced in the fall. So they're going to come to school, but they're going to have their grade level cohorts. And so we're really going to be focusing on that beginning of the year assessment and figuring out what skills are going to need to be which skills need to be, which gaps we need to close. And then our grade level teams will be working together to look at what that pacing guide is going to look like and what curriculum we're going to be, which parts of the curriculum we're going to be implementing, because we know that there's going to be some gaps. So the first probably quarter is going to be a lot of review and going back to those essential skills and going back further to see where we need to get kids caught up. So the in-person learning, we have some information on that. So if you're interested in terms of health and safety, we had another session on that, and I'd be happy to answer those questions, or Catherine can answer those for you as well. Will grades have simultaneous meetings with 2 children in different grades? No, we won't. So Ashley, that's a great question. The learning coach will be sure that they are scheduling office hours, or they're scheduling those virtual classroom times at different times, so that students who have a middle schooler or a 1st and 5th grader, that they're not having to be on the computer at the same time. We were very intentional about that in the spring, and we'll be intentional about that here in this fall as well. Okay, any other questions? Again, I'm really sorry about what happened with the middle school curriculum. I will, this link right here, if you guys go back, and because we're going to be posting these slides online, I will give the, this middle school one right here. I will make sure that the new demo course, the online course demo, will have the elementary and middle school demo links that come from CDLS, so that you guys can get in there and try those yourselves, because there is a username and login, username and password that you can use, so that you can get in there and try that yourself. If you want to have some one-on-one time with me, I'm happy to schedule that so we can get in and kind of digest some of that together. But in the next couple weeks, we're going to be really tight on schedules, so I will do everything I can to try to accommodate you in that. And we might even be able to have Catherine do some of it, or Amanda, or somebody can get in there and help you through that. The curriculum demos have been very helpful. Thank you for taking. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Brooke. I love you. Have a great rest of your evening. I can't wait to help you guys all further. And I'm sorry if you've already answered this. I've been off and on of this webinar. If we choose e-learning for the first semester, then transfer to the next person, where students have the same teacher. Yes, they will have the same teacher. So no problem at all.
Hey, Kim. One of the questions was if you could talk about on-camera time for any of the e-learning students. Will they be required to be on camera? How much, how long, etc.?
With their classmates. So
With
like,
their classmate?
technical learning coach, will they have to do
Which grade level?
elementary?
Elementary. So
It just,
really, it's going to be kind of up to the learning coach and that grade level. The grade level will have some virtual classroom sessions where they can make connections to, they'll have some fun activities. They'll have maybe some extensions of what they're learning for that week in terms of maybe a math lesson or so forth. So it won't be a ton of time, because we know the littles can only stay on there for probably about 10 minutes, 15 minutes before they start losing interest. So we know but then our 5th graders, they can probably stay on for about 30 minutes. So we don't like kids to be on the virtual side of it for more than that. So they won't be doing like sitting and watching a classroom teacher as a kindergartner watching the classroom at all. This is still, as you saw, it's very self-paced, and the students will be doing more of that coursework, watching videos, tools that are on embedded into the coursework. They'll be watching that more so. And then they'll have like those weekly sort of classroom check-ins to see how everybody's doing and do something fun together, an extension of what they're learning in the particular courses. Does that, I hope that answered it. I'm sorry, this is probably covered, but I missed the beginning. Are the classmates that you keep mentioning only the NSCA students? Or whoever else is? No, it's so good question. And yeah, you did miss that. This is only for NSCA. We do not have any other teachers, and we do not have, it's only NSCA teachers, and it's only NSCA students as well. So this is not open to the public. This is just our awesome team. You guys good? All right. All right, awesome. I'm so glad this was so helpful for everybody. And I hope that we answered as many questions as possible. And I'm very excited for you. Wendy, I'm so excited. You're excited about this too. I'm just giving you a big hug right now. You guys are amazing and you guys are gonna rock it. I already know we're gonna do such an amazing job and we're gonna make this happen here at New Summit because we always make these things happen, right, everybody? So you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening and thank you for going over a little bit on time. So we will see you all soon. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording and we are good.
You're still recording.